Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and I was having a real tough time picking what I wanted to talk about first stepping out of the Game Awards. There were so many announcements that I feel fit the mold of the channel and the things I like to talk about. We had a CD Projekt Red announcement, an Obsidian Entertainment announcement. I'm still picking through what's going on with the Outer Worlds 2 and trying to decipher some of the new details there. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. I wanted to start things off with The Witcher 4 because, as I mentioned during our last Cyberpunk upload, I was already preparing to talk a bit about The Witcher 4, and now here we are with the reveal of the game, which we talked about yesterday in our recap on the Game Awards, and we have a lot of information from CD Projekt Red on why they chose Ciri as the lead, some insights on choice and consequence, what they're doing with this new chapter in the Witcher story, because it's the start of a whole new trilogy. There's so much to unpack here with the fourth Witcher game. So we're going to get into all of it through a lot of coverage on IGN's website. If you're new here and you're into what CD Projekt Red is up to, you're in the right place. Consider subscribing, and we'll get into all of this. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor. Sports games have needed competition for a long while, and it's finally here. UFL is leading the charge with a premium football experience on PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series consoles, and best of all, it's free. What do we like most about the games? I personally am excited to grow and level up my team as I go, and there's no better time to do it than the UFL, where you can build your dream team to master the pitch and reach the top of the football world. UFL is committed to keeping things honest, fair, and skill-focused. You'll create your own club and face off against others around the world in strategic and challenging gameplay. There are licensed kits, you can work the transfer market, and even unlock perks for your players. What's more is that in UFL, your progress is permanent, meaning it won't be wiped at the end of a season. And guess who decided to partner with UFL? You probably already heard about Cristiano Ronaldo being the main ambassador of the game, but that's not all. Adidas has also joined UFL as the official global season partner, introducing the Adidas Team Pass with exclusive gear, iconic franchises, and custom stadium. Complete your quest for unique rewards and enjoy real-world perks like a 15% discount on select Adidas items. And if I were you, I wouldn't miss out on that. So what are you waiting for? Check out UFL on Xbox Series or PlayStation 5 using my link in the description and get into the newest free AAA sports game on the market where they're bringing the fun back to football. Play UFL now, play for football. We'll start with Article 1 called The Witcher 4 Developer CD Projekt explains why it went with Ciri over continuing with Geralt as the protagonist. CD Projekt has explained why it went with Ciri as the protagonist for The Witcher 4 instead of continuing with Geralt. The Witcher 4, just revealed at the Game Awards 2024 with a debut trailer, is the first in a new trilogy of Witcher games set after the events of Witcher 3. Speaking exclusively to IGN ahead of the reveal, executive producer Malgorzata Mitrega, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, said Ciri was the, quote, very organic, logical choice, end quote. Quote, it was always about her, starting from Saga. When you read it in the books, she's an amazing layered character, and of course, as a protagonist, we said goodbye to Geralt previously. So this is a continuation, I guess, for all of us. It's like she was meant to be. This was always for her. Game director Sebastian Kalemba added that Ciri is younger than Geralt. Players will actually have more freedom to define her character in a way they couldn't with Geralt. This also affords the developers more space to explore her character. Quote, she's actually about to become the Witcher, end quote, Kalemba explains. Quote, she's actually about to form her own codex, but on her own terms. The way she actually deals with the monsters, the way she deals with quests, the adventures, it's her own unique way. And also, I think that gives more room to be able to tell different stories here and there. Of course, we want to give the opportunity for the player to explore nuance because this is what we do, but she deserves that, end quote. Continuing on, they say, quote, we put player agency at the center, end quote. Achieving such has required an expansion and evolution of The Witcher's definition of player choice. Quote, we're giving more tools for players' disposal to not only be able to play and go with the consequences narratively, but also gameplay-wise. We want to give players more opportunity to be able to feel that they define their experience. Okay, let's pause there. There's a lot to pick from already. First and foremost is the choice with Ciri. I know there has been, as there always seems to be lately, some controversy online with this selection. As someone who played and completed The Witcher 3 twice, this felt like a very obvious choice. Now, I'll admit one level of ignorance here. I never finished Blood and Wine. I know you're like, what? But I played Hearts of Stone, was not crazy about it, so I moved on from The Witcher, and I'm really bad with picking the game back up when the DLC hits. So, unfortunately, that one has gone missed. Now that The Witcher 4 is somewhere nearby in the next, 3 years, we'll finally get that done, because I know that's the proper goodbye to Witcher 3, so I'll get that done right. But for me, Ciri as the co-main in Witcher 3 as a playable character was set up beautifully to be the next protagonist. It's been indicated to me in every single way. Her importance to the story is real. Even the sword that you see in this reveal trailer was the one given to Ciri by Geralt. Like, that sort of stuff hits, man. So I look at this sort of thing and go, yeah, duh. Like, I'm almost surprised that people were surprised by this. And it makes you wonder if the people who are upset about this really ever played The Witcher 3 in the first place. But that aside, I'm not really interested in talking about what people are talking about. What I'm interested in here is this game, and they talk about choice a lot. And one thing that I thought was really interesting, I wouldn't have thought of this unless I saw a really great video. It's from another YouTuber. I'm forgetting the name, but I'll put the screenshot of the video on screen right now. It is a video about what would Geralt 3 do throughout this story? Like, what were the choices that he would make? And it's an interesting thought exercise because Geralt is a defined enough RPG character where you can actually make choices from his shoes. Now, what's cool about The Witcher 3 and The Witcher 2 and The Witcher 1 is you can kind of go against that grain and make these choices that maybe aren't within Geralt's character, but allow you to role play differently. With Ciri kind of still establishing herself, how she does things, these assumptions are a little bit more by the wayside. And because of that, we get to define the crazy stuff that Ciri does. And I'm very keen to see just how expansive that is. Previously walled off options for a character like Geralt, who is more defined, are now a little more open, a little more freeform, and I'm curious about that. But for me, the most exciting thing truly was the gameplay, actually. While we didn't get any gameplay here when it came to the cinematic trailer, my one gripe with everything here involving The Witcher 4, I am a little bit more keen based on their self-awareness. Now, a lot of people love Witcher 3's gameplay. I am not here to tell you that you are wrong. If you love that style of gameplay, more power to you. The reason I struggle to get back into The Witcher 3 so often, even with the next-gen update, is like, it is a brilliant game, but once I've squeezed that narrative dry, for me, the gameplay just does not click as much. I do want to try one more time, especially, again, want to do Blood and Wine, so I want to get back into the swing of things, but I struggle a lot to get back into the combat system. For me, I think a lot of it is the pacing of it, the setup process, and I feel the lack of options, whereas they use Cyberpunk 2077 as an example here of sort of the lessons they've learned from Phantom Liberty and what that's going to enable them to do when it comes to The Witcher 4. I believe the gameplay in Cyberpunk 2077 was more varied than it was in The Witcher 3, and it allowed more freedom when it comes to creating character builds and being able to experience encounters in your own way, Kalemba explains. Every encounter in 2077's Night City is a flowchart of decisions, action or stealth, hacking or weapons, ranged or melee. Those options are expanded and enhanced by the skills and perks that you've invested in, as well as a healthy dose of curiosity and experimentation. And so, for Ciri's next adventure, the studio is looking not just to build up what it's achieved with The Witcher 3, but also Cyberpunk 2077 and Phantom Liberty. Quote, "This is something we definitely want to bring as a lesson to The Witcher 4, end quote, asserts Kalemba. Quote, "We want to improve on The Witcher 3's gameplay, but we also want to improve the alignment of the way you'll be able to explore the world," end quote. He hopes that such improvements will result in a super coherent experience across main story missions, side quests, and open world activities. I just love hearing this. I love hearing this because, for me at least, I felt that gameplay in The Witcher 3 is a little limiting when you go back to it. Cyberpunk, I'm always impressed by its level design and its gameplay options, especially because it plays as well as it does. When CD Projekt Red is not known for making first-person shooters, but they made a good-feeling one there. But to see them kind of step in and go, we recognize how this game gives you more freedom. Like, what if Ciri could use stealth? What if there were more options beyond the kind of silver sword or steel sword options, beyond the potions, the mutagens, beyond those sorts of things? I am very curious to see what they pull off with this. In the trailer, we see this chain being used to kind of reel in the monsters a bit, and I thought that was also a really interesting gameplay tool that we might be able to use. She used it to take down and bind up this creature. The sounds, the voices are getting louder until she decapitated this thing. It was an awesome sequence, but I looked at it and went, interesting. Okay, so I'm already seeing some flexibility here. I'm very keen to see how much they open it up, because my favorite thing about Cyberpunk is that player choice. Just in that gameplay alone, like the build crafting, you can pretty much turn that game into Watch Dogs if you want to and not draw your weapon and wipe out a whole room. You can also just go in guns blazing. You can go melee blazing, whatever you want. But I hope The Witcher 4 enables that as well, which it seems like they're going for. Back to choosing Ciri as the main character, they say that they acknowledge the potential backlash from some corners of the internet at Ciri's role as the protagonist in The Witcher 4, but both insist Ciri was always going to be the game's main character. Quote, "There was an intention behind the choice," end quote, Kalemba said. Quote, "It was far from roulette. It wasn't random. I remember we had discussions 9 years ago. We were talking about who's next. The very, very instant answer was Ciri. There are many reasons behind that. We've already mentioned a few, but she really deserves a stage, and we want players to really experience her story because she has so much to tell, so much to prove. The amount of challenges that are in front of her give us so much amazing energy and fuel to create an epic saga that we had no choice but to go with. We all felt this is the way. I believe this is the super right choice, end quote. They describe here that following the events of The Witcher 3, Ciri has undertaken the famously painful Trial of Grasses, which has mutated her into a powerful and resilient warrior, which is described, for those who don't know, on the actual wiki page for The Witcher as an incredibly painful trial which young Witcher apprentices were subjected to. It required the consumption of special alchemical ingredients known as the grasses and affected the nervous system. Reportedly, only 3 in 10 survived the trial, but those who did gained lightning-quick reflexes in turn. The trial was performed in the Witcher's laboratory at Kaer Morhen. So we're picking up Ciri's story, and one of the interesting things is trying to figure out where Geralt plays a factor in all this. Like, okay, she's like a full-blown Witcher now. She's collecting coin for killing monsters. You see that kind of darkness in the Witcher-style storytelling of, like, didn't go quite how you expected. Went in there to save a girl, stop a trial, she dies, monster dead, and you're kind of public enemy number 1, and she says at the end, there are only monsters. But we hear Geralt's voice at the end, and the question is, what kind of role is he going to play in this game? Now, Geralt's voice actor, Doug Cockle, kind of spilled the beans early before this reveal that he wasn't going to be the main character. So again, if you had your ear to the ground on what was happening with The Witcher 4, I feel like, again, you kind of expected that Ciri wouldn't be the main character. But you see here that there is another complication. Quote, the one complication is probably the idea that there is an ending in which Ciri can die in The Witcher 3, explains Mar, which thankfully that ending is one of 3 different fates for Ciri, and the outcome of several hidden choices made throughout the game isn't quite as clear-cut as it may seem. There are hints in that ending that highlight the fact that she probably does not die, and so regardless of the events you personally witness at the end of your own Witcher 3 playthrough, the sequel will not break any canon or even offend any canon, which tells us that there is not going to be a golden ending, is the term I like to use, like the definitive ending, the one that everyone has to pick to kind of know what the mainline Witcher experience is. That's not what you're getting here. It seems like every ending, at least how they're currently laying it out, will be respected in some way. Now, Ciri dying one of the endings and kind of undoing that, I'm curious to see how they handle all of that. But they describe here that they want to aim for newer players, and this is according to the executive producer of The Witcher 4, saying the wide audience, but also the people who know the franchise, but who do not play their games. And I think that's kind of what you would describe a lot of what they do in general. They just kind of make the game they want. I look at Cyberpunk and how it pushed past 30 million sales. The Witcher's past tens of millions of sales. Like, these series do really well, and they don't really have to compromise themselves much to do all of this high sales target stuff. But when they say it's a new era for Witcher, when they say new players, I think that's worrying terminology, and I'm usually right there with you. But given that it's in the breadth of like a new protagonist, a new start for a trilogy, that is what they're trying to communicate. To my interpretation, it is not like, hey, we're dumbing things down so that we can get the new players in. So that's how I'm reading that situation. And it looks like we'll probably see this one in a few years at the very least, only because, as according to the game's director, they just announced Project Polaris, which is The Witcher 4, has entered full-scale production, and with new challenges around the corner, it's the talented and hardworking people who make them believe that together the upcoming Witcher saga will be a remarkable experience, and there's no stopping now. Stay tuned for what's on the other side of the coin, which, as I said in our recap of what was going on with the Game Awards 2024, this is why we started to assume that The Witcher 4 would probably show up with some sort of trailer. The other concern with CD Projekt Red and The Witcher 4 that I'm surprised isn't being talked about a lot is, despite me loving Cyberpunk 2077 at launch, it was catastrophic for a lot of people. And the question is, have you learned from that? So here's what they say, quote, I think that it's already helping creating a better working environment, says Matrega. I guess the way forward is to produce in a healthy manner so that people can still find fun in what they do. And that's what is inspiring, and that's what makes it so high quality. We are planning different ways we communicate with the teams. They also have teams that are planning differently than they were on Cyberpunk 2077, so it's already helping. They also go on to mention in this article specifically that they have different content teams for different like sequences in the games, and this has also helped them. So obviously it's one of those things where you don't want to phone it in and say, all right, cool, the game's gonna be fine. Game development's crazy, game development's weird. I actually saw a short the other day that was saying The Witcher 2 was bugged because of a scene between Trish and Geralt, and the game almost broke. Like, it was fatal. It was 6 weeks of just the game kept crashing because of this particular scene. So game development can get wild like that as it gets bigger, but when I look at something here like this, I'm like, okay, at least the organization's getting better and the lesson hopefully has been learned and processed. Concern number 3 is actually how Ciri appears. There's been some conversation online and I think some borderline over-analysis of parts of her face, but people are a little worried about how she looks from The Witcher 3 to Witcher 4. To me, I'm saying we're looking at a 20-year-old girl in The Witcher 3, and we're looking at someone probably in their 30s by the time The Witcher 4 rolls around. There's a different voice actress, which that was the more surprising, like, oh, what's going on here? But if it's a more mature Ciri, an older Ciri, I think that change is warranted. Someone did post on Reddit something I thought was interesting, which is a comparison between the reveal trailer for Geralt, the launch cinematic, and then the actual final in-game version, which looks way better. I think Ciri looks cool at the end of the day, but the point being is that the cinematic is not indicative of the gameplay, which is typically the argument when we see cinematic trailers are like, bro, why does that represent the gameplay? But obviously when it comes to characters and how they look, those are usually a little bit more one-to-one, like kind of safely what you can expect here. But I don't mind that Ciri looks a bit older, a bit more mature, and that she is a bit more rugged and has been through a lot since The Witcher 3. I digress though. I think everything they're saying sounds great. It's definitely one of those wait and see approaches for CD Projekt Red. I'm a huge fan of their games, of course, but it still isn't an earn it position as it is for any game developer putting forward something this ambitious, especially when it comes to The Witcher 4 and sort of how do you follow up what is considered like the magnum opus of RPGs. Like The Witcher 3 isn't just another great RPG. For many people, this is considered the best role-playing game ever made, like an open world game with true role-playing mechanics and no sacrifices anywhere to be found. For me, I do enjoy games more than The Witcher 3, but I totally stand by the side of the argument that this is the gold standard for RPGs that developers should be reaching for, and that there are no concessions on what your game can accomplish in that. It's not like, well, we gave you choice, so we're going to give you like awful facial animations, or we gave you choice, so our gameplay is going to be whack. Like, I feel The Witcher 3 offers a very complete package, and that should be the expectation among consumers. And then when you add in the 12 weeks of free DLC, the supposedly fantastic expansion content, that is what The Witcher 3 stands for. And so to follow that up is a tough act to follow, as they kind of learned with Cyberpunk, but managed to recover. But I don't think people are going to be, cheering for another recovery effort. Like CD Projekt Red had that moment with Cyberpunk, brought it back to greatness. That was really exciting. But now it's like, okay, business as usual, right? Deliver this time. So we'll see as time goes on, but I'm excited for The Witcher 4. A lot of these details have me very interested, and I'm curious to get your thoughts down below, so fire away. Other than that, I'll catch all of you in the next video. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.